Boppity boopity. Boppity bee. Welcome. We're episode 18, Goopcast. Alright. Our topic is the biggest disappointment in pop culture slash media or media. Whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
In geek media.
In geeky media.
Yeah.
If it is in
Yeah.
geeky media, sure. Boppity boom.
Yeah, we're definitely not gonna be talking about how, I don't know, Beyonce's last album was a disappointment. I wouldn't know, by the way.
That isn't my world. I know not the magic
I'm
there.
sure it was great. The Queen.
The Queen. The Queen. The Queen. Alright. Does anybody got anything?
No, everything has been perfectly appointed to me.
Everything has been perfectly amazing.
I think that one of the biggest disappointments. Oh my God, we'll get to we'll eventually get to Game of Thrones and Star Wars, but other than that, I think one of the biggest disappointments for me was the Dark Knight Rises.
Huh.
With the great pedigree that the past two movies had garnered, especially the Dark Knight. I was just expecting to be blown away by Christopher Nolan, and what we got was good. It was all right, but it just became the movie that the more you thought about it after the fact, the more angry you got at it because the more plot holes you kept digging.
I do agree with that. I really like that movie, but it's definitely the weakest of the trilogy, and it is it's by far the most absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Like the scenarios that play out are pretty ridiculous, and I think I talked about it on one of the other episodes, but the whole ending is ridiculous, and
It's just really oddly structured too,
Yeah.
At first he has, Batman has to come back, and then he gets his back broken, and then he has to come back again, and
Right, yeah.
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 And at first I was intrigued because it was, touching on the idea of class warfare, and they had like this whole, bigger world that it was touching on, but in the end it just that just wasn't resolved at all.
Right, and the whole Talia al Ghul thing is just kind of shoved in there. Like anybody who doesn't actually know the comics or even have played the Arkham games or something, nobody's gonna there's not gonna be any shock when she actually reveals who she is. People are just gonna be like, "Wait, who is that?" They're not even probably gonna remember Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins. It's just "Oh, I'm Talia al Ghul." It's okay, sure.
You know what it reminds me of? It's that moment in the Star Trek sequel, with the where they show Khan being
Into
played
Darkness.
by Into Darkness by
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Thank you, Benedict Cumberbatch. And hey, they have that one particular scene where they ask him his name, and he answers, "My name is Khan."
Yeah, they
And that's just
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody already
When I
knew
saw
that
it
it
in
was
theaters,
gonna be
everybody
him.
clapped for that because they were like, "Oh yeah, awesome!" But it's not like anybody was surprised. We all knew that was Khan.
Yeah.
But
for
I mean, I feel
people
like
who
that.
never
I
knew
feel like
anything.
that was more of a PR problem though. Whereas the trailers revealed it, and the interviews beforehand revealed that long before it was supposed, long before the movie even came out.
Basically, they didn't get the memo that it was supposed to be a secret.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
they didn't
but
care.
why does it even within the universe? Why does it need to be a secret? Even if you have not watched any other Star Trek, and you've only
It's only for the
exposed to the
audience.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the kind of thing that
None of the characters are actually going to know that, except for the Spock that went to their universe.
exactly. I mean, even those characters would have to be like, okay, so your name is Khan. Why did you say it so dramatically?
Yeah, why'd you pause?
Yeah. Is
He's
that
all like,
supposed to mean
"Oh,
something?
I'm losing my breath. I'm so sorry."
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I was a big deal back in the day. It's like, okay.
Does he even know that he was a big deal? That's another thing.
Right,
He doesn't
exactly.
know. He doesn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the kind of thing that, like, it kind of preys on audience expectation, but because of the marketing that you just mentioned, it just doesn't have any effect.
Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, back to Dark Knight Rises. I mean, it's a well shot movie, but just kind of fell below expectations.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I can understand that.
pretty expected to not reach. Like, how can you outdo the previous?
Joker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and on top of that, I'm pretty sure Joker had a plan for like
Mhm.
being in the next movie, but they can't do that. Like,
Mm.
they couldn't do it. So,
What are you talking about? They could have brought in Jared Leto.
mm.
He was such an amazing Joker.
You put in that put him. Yeah, actually, that would validate the universes are in the same. The movies are in the same universe.
Yeah.
So, like,
Uh,
how did you get? How did all that stuff happen all at the same time, and nobody paid attention to it in the previous movie?
yeah. Batman would have
This
been like,
cataclysmic situation happening, and yet no one is like, "Oh yeah, right, that it did
yeah.
happen. Some sort of spiritual plant thing happened in some city, whatever the fuck that was.
Mhm.
I don't even remember what that was in fucking Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah. Wait, did they even name the city at all?
I don't. Nope.
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
think so.
not sure.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
I
sure it
can't
was not Gotham.
I can't remember anything about that movie, to be honest.
Yeah, better that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes your brain, does protect you against,
Yeah.
harmful things that you should never remember. Like my time during the Civil War in El Salvador. I'm kidding.
Okay.
Oh, although I did grow up during the Civil War, but it's not a big deal. But
You're on the side where it wasn't a big deal.
okay,
Is
what I'm
that
saying
what you're
is that
saying?
okay. So what I'm saying,
You're the
what I'm
1%.
saying, yeah, I was the 1%. No, what I'm saying is that I was born towards the tail end of the Civil War, so I did not really see a lot of conflict. And yeah, because I was born in that in the city, I didn't actually see any of that stuff. But yeah, no, it definitely was a really big deal. It was a civil war, so kind of hard not to be a big deal.
Yeah.
But in the sense that I didn't face any repercussions in my own personal life.
Yeah,
But,
Sure.
you're in the
yeah.
lucky side of the country.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other disappointment was No Man's Sky. I think that
Mm.
yeah, I mean it probably isn't a disappointment to
If you think
most other
that's a
people.
disappointment, what about what was that one, Mighty Number 9? Now that was a big disappointment.
Oh, I
If
mean,
you want to talk
I
about
definitely.
disappointments, that was a big giant pile of crap.
You know what? I will hand over the mic to you because apparently you have more to say about that than I have about No Man's Sky.
That's all I got to say. It's a big giant pile of crap.
Hey
There-
man, it's better than nothing.
No, no.
God, they actually said that on
Yeah,
stream.
they
They
Oh
did.
they
my
did.
God.
Yeah, it's so
Ah.
bad,
Ah.
so bad. I think the funniest thing is when
Better
the
than
designer
nothing.
the designer says, "Yeah, just people weren't passionate about it." I'm all like, "Fucking, you kidding me?
It-
You paying
people
these people
that
and
was
working
the problem.
like
People were
stupid?
super
Yeah,
passionate about it.
yeah.
You're fucking dumb."
Yeah. Like,
Like
I mean, who
he
wasn't passionate
basically
about
threw
it?
his team under the bus by
Oh,
saying that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
oh,
Like
Yeah.
it wasn't my fault that they didn't
Yeah,
design it.
exactly.
Like fuck you.
oh, dick. I know, right?
What a a-hole. Stupid. Stupid as
Im-
hell.
Yeah, I mean, it's not their fault they have a crappy manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I can say,
I'm-
pizza explosions. Pepperoni pizza explosions.
Pepperoni. What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Because the
The
explosions
explosion
in there
textures look like
look like
pizza.
Pepperoni.
Pepperoni
zoomed in
pizza,
up
yeah.
close.
it's
That's
so
amazing.
it's so low res and just like slapped together that oh my god, dude, it looks like like the kind of shitty college level like games that are made, that are like made in a rush and
Right, it's a class project where they were drinking the night before and
Uh-huh.
things got out of hand, so they just cobbled something together.
Exactly. Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Fucking
Yeah.
stupid.
I mean, to be fair to No Man's Sky, that game definitely had the whole redemption arc for the past 4 or 5
Sure,
years
but
since
the
it came out.
launch of it,
Yeah.
Oh, it's
and the
disastrous.
promise that, not
Oh,
only
yeah.
that were
the team that
never
worked on
showed.
it, but also, Sony had a big hand because they helped promote it and they put millions and millions of dollars into the promotion and just
And they
blatantly
threw them under the
lied to
bus
people.
too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They're like, oh, they make those promises. No, wait, no, not at all.
Yeah.
No,
Just
we
It's
had
gonna
nothing
not
to
go
do with
ahead.
it.
Sony's fault. No, not us.
They're like
We've
it's
never
like,
done anything wrong.
Sony's perfect.
we
Send
don't
me a
we don't
PS5.
we don't actually review the games that we put on our shop. Come on, we just put
Curation? What's that?
it out. Yeah.
Hey,
That
to be
sounds like
fair,
that sounds like a spell from Final Fantasy. We don't do that here.
to be fair, for anybody who doesn't know about this, they do still have listed, Life of Black Tiger.
Yeah.
So clearly, there's no such thing as curation there.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
that's
what we're
one of
saying.
their better games on the PlayStation Store too. So
It was a masterpiece. Just look up, Life of Black Tiger on
Hmm.
YouTube. It's just
I
it'll
mean, the
make you cry.
PlayStation Store infrastructure is still trash. Like it's been trash since the PSN launched and the beginning in like 2006, the beginning of the PS3 era. And I think like 6 or 8 months ago, they finally made it so that like you can just type something into the search bar and it like finds it. Like it kind of finds it instead of doing the thing it did for many years where it just like you type in a letter and it like randomly picks up another letter and like you have to do this puzzle piece bullshit to like find out like where games are, but like it still sucks. Like I hope that they improve it for the PS5, but I don't think they will.
Right.
Not that we've seen anything from the UI of that fucking system anyway, and it's like launching in a month, but Sony's the best.
I mean, to be fair to No Man's Sky, it was made. I was always aware of the fact that it was made by a small team. Like they're literally
Sure,
just
yeah.
like 5 guys. But honestly, the most disappointing thing about the game is just that it's just boring. You'd think that something like the exploration survival game, a la, what's that game? Don't Starve, but in space. Sounds fucking amazing. But there's just so many bad things about the game, just like how it handles its UI, how it just handles like the whole inventory systems, and you could have that kind of procedural generated just progression, and make it a fun game loop. But the biggest problem to me wasn't the graphics, wasn't the on on launch promises at the start. It was just the fact that the gameplay loop was just wasn't fun.
Well, there's also urgency in Don't Starve. Like you're like finding stuff and you're going out to forage, like to survive. And if you don't build a fire and you don't have stuff, then like you die at night. Like the monsters will come and kill you. So I didn't feel like there was. I never played No Man's Sky, but I've seen a few streams of it, and I never feel like it's the danger doesn't like. There's danger kind of, but it's never really that imminent. Like there's some creatures over there, but we'll be fine. Like it's not a big deal. Like oxygen levels are going down, but like it's not that big of a deal. Like it's just kind of a very relaxed experience, which I know a lot of people like, but I can definitely understand how you wouldn't, and it's not that wouldn't be my kind of game either personally. Just because I need some sort of fight. Even if it's not like a fist fight or a gunfight, I need some sort of antagonism to challenge me.
Right.
Something that pushes you along the game instead of you just wandering around. It's kind of like trying to play. Was that Myst game? As much as I like the puzzles, I just got bored the shit out of me because I did not have any. It's just one of those things where like there's a puzzle and you need to solve it to get in the next area, but there was no urgency to do it. It was just to fight the boredom, the fact that I'm stuck here. And then it would just, like as much as I like puzzles and stuff like that. It's not like Resident Evil where like I'm trying to figure out this puzzle, but I know that if I take too long, I might have to like deal with some sort of zombie attack or whatever, or
Right.
the world is I already know is intense, but like there's a story at least for me to like go forward. There's some sort of reason to go forward.
Right.
And I think maybe that's a game design issue of like not realizing what is the motivation to have the player move forward. Is it because of story, or is it because there's this imminent threat that's behind you that's pushing you towards that direction, or there's a prize at the other end of that tunnel? So it's like they just lost that game design part, like that basic motivation aspect. It's great to say that you want to explore anything, but if the fucking area is boring to explore and whatever you
Right.
discover is not, like wow, aha moment, then why do it? It's boring.
Yeah, there has to be some incentive to actually want to explore the environment.
Right.
People aren't just going to be like, "Oh, it's a big world. I'll just walk around and like if you get bored, they'll just go to something else.
Maybe
like there's
that's
a million other games. Like
maybe
you
that's
you
the
need to
big
make it
lesson.
enticing.
The big lesson, I think the bigger lesson here is that like you can have everything have this procedural way of having to design the levels and like how the planets are made, but if there's no human interaction of the designer putting their 2 cents to make it interesting, you're basically having a computer program the game for you. The computer doesn't know what the fuck is fun, So
They were
maybe
in, they were
that's
interested.
what they needed to do more of. Put in the human
Yeah.
element that made it more interesting.
Yeah, I think that they definitely had a very interesting, technology and concept that they wanted to try out. Like the
Right.
technology that they were using is interesting in that it just creates its own, terrain, on the go. But they didn't really have, like you said, like some sort of like, game loop design, uh, you know, objective in mind.
Hmm.
Right. It's technically impressive, but like
Uh-huh.
the
Right.
innards of the game, like the moment-to-moment gameplay. I remember, see, that's the thing I remember the most about like everybody, like not only me seeing previews of it, but like every game journalist who saw previews of it, they're just like, but what is the game? Like, what is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
moment-to-moment gameplay?
Yeah,
Like
where's the
nobody could
fun?
understand. And like and then when it actually launched, you understood why, because like I don't know that the designers really knew what the moment-to-moment gameplay was supposed
Yeah.
to be either. It's
I
just
think
like,
that's
oh,
exactly what they.
we built this technically impressive, all these technically impressive worlds. Have at it, I guess. Like I don't know what like it's yeah. I don't.
The
I don't know
programmers
if they.
that's when you get a bunch of programmers with no artists, no designers. They just like make the most complicated, technically advanced, and only to them they're entertained by it. But when you play it, you're like, is this meant to be
Right,
fun?
it's a cool tech demo more than a game,
Yeah.
or at least
So-
that's the way it was at launch.
Yeah, so if I would hope that that lesson is learned there, and that they like it's like, okay, we definitely need a game designer that has like a vision that can use the tech that we have here, because if we don't have that, we don't got a game. Hopefully that like they have a moment like that, or that we don't see. To me, in a industry viewpoint, I hope we don't see the last of them. I hope that we get them. Like they make something else.
I think
and
they're
then-
making a new game. Yeah.
Right. Like if they make something else, then they need to learn these lessons, right? And then like either get the right people or try and figure it out themselves, how to like, make do with what they had not was unable to do the first time around.
More than that,
Hopefully.
I wish that in the future, that kind of technology is just used in any other type of a game. That's just more
Right.
fun to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
I can totally see like I can totally see a Diablo-esque, dungeon, procedurally generated terrain, like with like with a fun gameplay loop, but you don't see
Yeah,
that.
I think Diablo they did do like procedural generated levels, but it wasn't nearly as complex as something like a whole fucking universe.
Yeah, it was just basically different tiles of 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 different things that could go in there, but didn't have like a terrain that could be just randomly generated or procedurally generated.
Yeah. I don't think it was like I think it should have been pretty obvious for anybody to know that if you put anything that's procedurally generated by a computer, it's never going to come out visually interesting, or you could wrap a idea around it. It's just going to be exactly that, random. So it's like it's not
It's the
something
thing, like the game
entertaining.
can be very interesting, visually. It's just that kind of gameplay loop where it's like, well, there's nothing to do. It's interesting for the first hour or two because you can explore around. You can one of the most satisfying things about the game is flying into your spaceship, immediately get out of the planet, and land into the next planet with such ease.
Right.
And yeah, some of the visuals are are very interesting, even if they are rudimentary. But it's just the prime example of how, even though the game can have you know 17 quintillion, a ridiculous number of planets, bigger doesn't make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's my stuff. Who wants to go next?
Pizza
Uh,
explosions. No, okay. Go on.
Can we put an explosion and those like awkward pauses? Just like, "Dwah!" I'll take that.
Just
for
like
now.
letdowns, does it have to be stuff that's finished? I don't. It's really hard to say.
Doesn't have to be
Okay.
necessarily, I guess. I don't know.
All right, I'll go. I mean, there's a bunch. I have three main ones, but some honorable mentions. Or well, okay, yeah, I'll
Dishonorable
say
mentions.
something like something like the Dread trilogy is, or the potential that the Dread trilogy, that could have been something cool. I remember the director, of the first Dread, or the only Dread, the 2012 Carl Urban one, like that could have been a cool
movie.
trilogy. It was supposed to be a trilogy, didn't work out, obviously. And then like something else like Star Trek 14, which is the next Star Trek movie. That's something that's supposed to. It's sort of been in limbo for like the last 4 years, and it's had different writers, and the guy who created and wrote the Fargo TV series, Noah Hawley, he's attached to write that one. And I think it was like a couple years ago when he said, like, it was announced that he was going to write it, and it was going to follow, like, it was going to be focused on Kirk and like his classic Star Trek, like time travel and bringing him and his father back together, who's played by Chris Hemsworth. But in the first one, and it was supposed to be that movie. Unfortunately, will probably never come to be, because just the way that Paramount treats its actors. It basically, like, it did they got into negotiations. Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth, they were both signed on to come back. It was like they were excited, and Paramount's like, okay, we're gonna pay you both less money. Even though Chris Pine's the lead, and Chris Hemsworth, even though he's way bigger than he was in 2009. Obviously, he's fucking Thor now and all these things, but like it's even he was like, I don't need to be paid more money. Like, it's fine. Like, I just want to come back to the franchise. It's cool. And Paramount was just like, no, we're just going to pay you both less money than you were paid before. And they just wouldn't budge. And so, the negotiation fell through. And, they've done that before. They tried that with Tom Cruise and for Mission Impossible 6 and just paying him less. But eventually, I guess that got ironed out, obviously. But, yeah, that's just one of those ones that it's unfortunate, and it's never going to really come to pass. But the main two that I have are, we've already, like, I guess I'll start with Splinter Cell. Where is it? Where is that fucking franchise? The last game that came out in that franchise was Blacklist, which was in 2013. It was like literally one of the last. I played it and reviewed it, and it was literally one of the last big PS3, Xbox 360 games before this generation launched, and it was a great game. In my opinion, it's the best Splinter Cell game, and I've played all of them. It's my favorite stealth series, and there were 3 Splinter Cells on PS2 or that generation, 3 on the PS3 generation, and 0 on this generation. And it's obvious, obviously the franchise is, I guess, dead. But the problem is that Ubisoft, it's almost like they have like an active disdain for the series because they keep bringing back Sam Fisher, but not in a Splinter Cell game. Like they brought him back in 2017. They brought him back in the DLC for Ghost Recon Wildlands, and they even brought back Michael Ironside to voice him because he didn't. They had replaced Michael Ironside in Blacklist in 2013. So they even brought back Michael Ironside. So it was like, okay, like surely they brought back Michael Ironside. They brought back Sam Fisher. At that point, it had been 4 years since the last Splinter Cell. It was like, okay, for sure they're teasing a new Splinter Cell game. Like they're going to show it at E3 or something. It's got to be in development. That wasn't the case. They never mentioned Splinter Cell. E3 came and went. The next E3 came and went, and fans were like, "What the fuck's going on?" And then recently they've really amped up this like Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell without an actual proper Splinter Cell game. Where a few months ago they put Sam Fisher in Rainbow Six Siege as an operator, as a new operator. Again, people, because I think Ubisoft's like big conference where they showed off a bunch of new games was like last month or something, and like people were like, surely it's been long enough. Surely they've teased it enough. They're gonna bring out a new Splinter Cell game at this Ubisoft event because they just brought back Sam Fisher in Siege, and then they put him in this like shitty little fucking mobile game with a bunch of other heroes from like other fucking big franchises, and they're like, okay, this has got to be it. Like I've listened to podcasts with big Splinter Cell fans, and they're like, this has to be it. Like it's been 7 years, surely this is it.
Ubisoft,
but it's not. It's not. It's still not. Like the only thing that they announced, and it wasn't at that event, was definitely not a proper Splinter Cell game. What it was a VR experience that will come out. Not a game, but an experience. It's like it's supposed to be an hour or something of you playing as Sam Fisher. And then the other thing they announced was a Netflix animated series for Splinter Cell, which
So
I don't know how that will work, but it sounds fucking dumb. And I don't know. Like I'm just it does seem like Ubisoft like actually has some sort of contempt for the franchise or something, because it's really perplexing the way they're sort of just they keep teasing it but not actually doing anything with it.
Sounds
it's
like
really
they're
frustrating.
actively avoiding it. Like
I guess, but then why put anything out of Sam Fisher at all? Like, just fucking kill it. Just kill the franchise. Stop putting him in shitty mobile games. Stop making him like. Why are you spending all this money on an animated series and a VR experience, but you're not making a proper game? Like either make a proper game or just kill the franchise entirely.
Yeah, it
right.
Sounds like they don't want to. They like legitimately don't want to do it, and they don't want to like. They don't literally want to make a game. They want to keep the property, but they don't want to make the game. That's what it sounds like. Because it definitely doesn't make sense. Like I'm agreeing with it. Doesn't make sense. Why keep on?
It's an odd thing. I like it.
It looks like
really...
they're just using it as a teaser to make other games like you know how like you have this like I mean they are known for that game or that character, but they don't want to do it because they don't want to be known for that. So they're going to try to make other games, but use him as a like a candy and at the end of the stick kind of thing, or the carrot on the stick.
I guess. I mean, yeah. They only introduce him in games that are already established, though. like Ghost Recon or like Siege, where it's like you don't need him there.
Mm.
Like it already has a fervent like fucking fan base. You don't need him there. The only thing I can think of is that they just keep putting him in shit because if they don't use the IP in some way, then they will lose it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I could think of.
And they
I
Like,
just don't think that Ubisoft ever wants to make that kind of game anymore. The kind of like
yeah,
yeah,
like
it
they're
feels like they
they're
don't
only
want to
into
do
like
it at all.
games and
Single player
services now,
experience.
right? Like
Exactly.
they've said it like blatantly, like we're not gonna do games that aren't like franchises. Which is,
Right.
I mean, Splinter Cell is a franchise already, but it's stealth, and stealth classically does not sell very well. So I don't know. I assume I that's the only reason I could think of for that.
Yeah, that's the only possible.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
something
with
has
how
to do with the
much-
numbers. You know what I mean?
Of course,
So-
yeah.
Because people just do numbers.
Yeah, they just simply don't want to make that kind of single player experience anymore. Like they simply, the closest
see the
they
money in
want to,
it.
the closest thing they want to get to that would be, Assassin's Creed, and that's just because they milk the shit out of that franchise.
Mhm.
Right.
And they found a way to put microtransactions in it, and I'm guessing that that probably does well enough that they can also, milk those.
Yeah.
I personally never bought a single microtransaction for any of those games, but
Me neither.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
never done it.
yeah, and then the other one that I have is it's Star
Sounds
Wars,
like D
but not.
has bought so many. He hasn't said a thing. No, I was kidding.
wait, what?
I'm just joking.
Hey, okay. I did
It's definitely
buy
not-
one microtransaction for the phone, for the mobile experience of Assassin's Creed 5. What was that called? The one in
Five.
Paris.
You mean Unity?
Unity, yes, it had a mobile companion. I remember buying one microtransaction
Oh.
for that.
Oh yeah, that's right. It did have a mobile
Mhm.
companion thing. I forgot what
Yep,
the
yep.
fuck that does. It was like
It
a
was-
your stupid map.
Yeah, pretty
Essentially.
much. I can. Yeah, exactly. And something about receiving experience. I totally fell for it. I was like, nope.
That was back in the day when the putting all the microtransactions wasn't as fervent as it is now.
It also was the pinnacle of Ubisoft. Of that whole part of this generation of video games that just ship the games like totally incomplete and filled with bugs.
Hmm.
I mean, that game was not the pinnacle of that at all.
That's
Ubi-
fine.
uh,
Which one do you think is worse? I mean, other than okay,
I mean,
okay, hold on. I know
lots
exactly
of
which
their
one.
games launch like way worse
Pretty
than that. I mean, like
much,
I personally
known for
didn't
it.
actually. I rarely experience bugs with that game more than like I did with other games. Like even something like The Division, I feel like has like for me personally has more bugs than I experience in that game. Like most of their, I mean, you make the joke all the time, Carlos, that like Ubisoft games, like the thing that you can always guarantee is that you'll fall through the world.
Yeah,
Like that,
Yeah.
like that's
that's what I'm saying.
It happens
I
in
think
Far
I-
Cry. It happens in so many of their games.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I think
the
I
point
fell
is
through
it's
the
not the
wall.
pinnacle. The point was he's saying he's not the pinnacle. It's just more like it's more of the same.
Oh, interesting.
That's what he
Okay,
means. Yeah.
I would have. I don't know. I think I would disagree. Like I remember, like
You think
it
that
also
was
had
the
worst
worst offender of
I
any
think
Ubisoft game?
as far as Ubisoft games, yes. I remember when it came out, it had really poor frame rate. There were areas where the big giant crowd that they tried to like put into the game was it was commendable for them to try to use it, but it just tanked the frame rate just so badly. Like it took them
I
months
see.
to
So your
actually-
your
Yeah.
your complaint is that the visual aspect and a lot of the stuff that you can still play the game and get frustrated looking at still happens. Where I'm pretty sure for Apollo, it's if the game's just not functional, that's the biggest offender. So
I mean,
all the issues
well,
that
it's
you ran
just-
into, it's still functioning. It's just it looks shit.
No, yeah, no, I definitely had a bunch of like bugs in that game. Like I think I fell through the floor in that game more than any other game that I've ever played. Also, like the
It could
a
be just a
multiplayer
coincidence
component.
too.
Yeah, it could be.
Like
I mean, it's
like
different for
you
everybody.
had it more often.
Well,
than most
everybody,
people.
yeah, each person's copy is different.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the people's bugs and stuff that they reported, like I just didn't experience.
Yeah, it's just more like luck then at that point.
Also, the multiplayer
Oh yeah, the
for that
multiplayer
game
was
was it was pretty shit. Yeah,
poop.
and it was kind of fun to think, oh, like a bunch of guys, sneaking in. It doesn't work. It
Yeah,
really doesn't
it
work.
really didn't work.
It's like trying to find sending a bunch of guts from Berserk, trying to sneak into a castle. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, because 4 people and none of them happens to make the mistake of like falling off or something in front of the guards. You know what I mean?
And all of a sudden,
It's
like,
hard
oh,
enough
well,
with
I
one
guess-
person.
Yeah,
Now you got like 3 other people other than
don't turn around that
yourself.
corner. Oh, god damn it.
I think that's a problem in any game that tries to put in multiplayer and stealth together.
Mhm.
Like any game, like I don't think I've ever seen a stealth game with more than 2 players be like,
Yeah.
Yeah, with
fun.
more than 2 for sure.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah, I mean, stealth by its very nature is very, trial and error.
Right.
And that just, I can't imagine just that being exponentially worse than, the more players you put in.
Mm-hmm. Maybe in this next generation where load times is not an issue, then like the trial and error of games will be less egregious, less kind of painful.
You guys remember the long ass load screen when Bloodborne first came out?
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the hipster glasses of like, you didn't go through the same pain I did.
No, seriously.
Like fuck you. You
Back
don't know
in my
hard.
days,
Yeah, you don't know hard mode. No, I was kidding.
you had to wait for a minute to load every time you died in Bloodborne.
It's
I
pretty
love
funny.
that game. I mean, to be fair, the most buggy game out there, it's still, the king of all, Fallout 76.
Yeah, I suppose so. I haven't played it so. I only know of what people talk about.
I know that
I
there
feel
was
like the
this one.
transactions and stuff like that. That's
There was this
that's
one.
what comes to my mind when I think about that game.
Yeah. I don't know. In my mind, I saw a YouTuber by the name of Joseph Anderson, and he has like a whole, like 3 hour show of like 1,001 of bugs in that game.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
It's a fun thing. If you're doing anything, you can easily put it in the background. It's an easy watch.
There's a difference between like fun bugs and then there's like it's just unplayable, and that game
Yes.
sounds unplayable. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a certain game which will go unnamed, and I don't think we're going to waste time guessing what that game is. But there is a certain game from people's childhoods that came out maybe 18 years ago. Who's to say? It is based on a popular franchise. It is riddled with so many bugs, but people call them endearing and challenging. Again, this is a mystery game. No one knows what this game is as of this podcast, but let's just say it involves a water gun and a man with a mustache. End of story.
Are there really so many bugs in that game? I don't remember that
Oh,
many bugs in
yes,
Sunshine.
there are plenty. Yes.
I'm gonna play it again.
That's not why I'm here. I mean, I'm here to talk about stuff that failed in Geek Media.
That's interesting. I don't remember. It's probably the rosy glasses that I have from that game, but
Oh yeah, there's
I don't remember.
plenty of physics bugs like the momentum for the leaf on the poison water in the mystery game. Looking at with the water gun and man with the mustache, but who's to say?
But who's to say?
Who's to say? Indeed.
That game is the
I mean,
It's funny. That game is the black sheep of those 3D Mario games, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So,
people can still have their fun. I'm not saying that it's not unplayable. I'm just saying that pretending the flaws don't exist just because either you didn't experience them or you might be withholding information just doesn't take away the game's fun. It's just those are programming oversights, and pretending that they weren't there is just delusional. Just saying.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's might also be the kind of thing like like Apollo, said, like he didn't experience any bugs in Assassin's Creed. I
Or
probably
he
didn't really
did, but
experience.
he didn't. He's saying like he did, but I'm pretty sure it's not nearly as
Right,
bad
it
as
didn't
others.
lower the
Well, I've just
his
experienced
entertainment.
bugs in Ubisoft games that are way worse than anything I saw in Unity.
Right.
Fair.
And I just remember people bitching
smashes.
and moaning so much about that game, and like Ubisoft like apologizing, like we're sorry for this game. And I'm like, well, why don't you apologize for the other Assassin's Creed games that fucking sucked that came out before this? Like, how about that? Like, I
Yeah.
was like
Mhm.
honestly so irritated with that, where people were like demanding it, and like Ubisoft was caving, and I'm just like, dude, like this game, like okay, if you found some bugs or whatever, I especially understand if they're like game breaking bugs, but like like the campaign for me was like still fun, and like the Assassin's Creed games up until then that I had played, like they were not good. Like a lot of the Ezio games, and even the first one, and there was just like the Assassin's Creed series has improved a lot since then, and it's actually a series I really enjoy now. But like back then, it fucking sucked. It sucked for many, many years, and the fact that was the one that people harped on so much, like really pissed me off.
That's interesting. I think that was like the very last traditional
What was the
Assassin's
game?
Creed game.
What was the bug that
Syndicate.
made it like so bad? Like I don't actually remember what was the.
I mean,
big
there
reason.
were ones where like people's faces, like NPCs' faces, weren't showing up, and you could see like their skeletons and shit, and like
Floating
fallen.
eyes and
I
teeth.
never experienced that one. I definitely
Yeah, I
experienced a lot of times where like I would throw enemies out the window and they would just like remain floating in midair. It's like, oh, he's technically dead. Not my problem now. Just moving on.
Cause I remember, I remember when I got the game. There was a big uproar for it, and then yeah, I had bugs in the game, sure, but like for me, honestly, I felt like it's not a surprise, like I felt like it's like why is this a surprise? Like it's a Ubisoft game, whatever.
Yeah.
And you just have all these bugs in there. I just knew that's gonna happen, but not to a point where it like like I'd be upset if it like corrupted the entire file and started infecting other things or
Right.
whatever. Like then that's a high
This is
bar, right?
We're
Like
talking
how
about
do you?
Ubisoft, not Bethesda here.
Well, I mean, even something I remember like that shit happening like in Dead Space 3, where I was like, like my files like got corrupted, and I was like, I had to like start over, and I don't remember people bitch about that game for a lot of reasons and for good reasons, but I don't remember too many people like
running into that.
I don't
to a
remember
point.
hearing that. I don't
Yeah.
remember that sort of uproar and that backlash that like Unity got, and I was just like, there are so many worse offenders than this game. Like, and the fact that people just totally focused fired that game for those reasons was just like perplexing to me. I'm just like, have you played any Bethesda game? Like they're
Right.
great and they're charming, like the Bethesda Studio proper games, but like like they're riddled with bugs. New Vegas is one of my top 10 games of all time, and it is also the single buggiest fucking game I've ever played in my life. Like that game, like it just totally stopped like 20 hours in, and I had to start over. And I did because it was like so much fun. It was that much fun, but like
you're
I'm not gonna. I didn't give it a pass. Like I acknowledge that it's super fun, but like it's still like the buggiest mess I've ever played to this day. So it was always super confusing to me that Unity got so much heat.
Yeah,
I think
it
the reason why
got
it got so much heat was because it was so popular, and also there weren't that many choices at the time.
Oh, so that's the
Choices
reason.
in terms of what? What do you mean?
There weren't just that many games towards the beginning of the console generation.
Oh, okay. So you're saying basically there was nothing else to play, so they had to whine about something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
I feel like it had the most exposure and the least amount of like, and there weren't as many alternatives for people to.
Well, at least I got a free game from that bullshit. So
you got a free game.
Yeah. So they made this because it was such a big deal that people made an uproar about it. They gave, because you had the copy of Unity, they gave a free game, and that's how I got Far Cry.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. That's how I got Far Cry 5 as well.
Like that's what I mean. That's so fucking stupid. Like that's
that was
so
so extreme.
dumb.
Yeah.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, there was that much of a fucking backlash because people's faces were melting off that you gave people free games? That's so stupid.
Yeah. It was.
I don't
it
think
was
you
so
remember
weird.
just how bad the frame rate was too.
I remember, and I'm just saying, like, there are so many worse games. There's so many worse offenders of frame rates, of like graphical problems, of physics problems in the Ubisoft library. Like, I just don't understand. I still, to this day, I'm just like, people go back and I still hear people talk about it where they're like, oh man, Unity was such a trash game. So it's like, I mean, so was Assassin's Creed 2. Like, fuck that game. Like, it wasn't like, I agree that like technically it wasn't as bad, but like it, like those games had such huge glaring problems. And it's funny because Unity didn't have a lot of the problems like narratively and that the previous Assassin's Creed games did, but it had some of the technical issues, some that the others didn't. So that's what people focused on. And you might have something, Carlos, where it's like, okay, it was one of the bigger like games of that generation, one of the first bigger games. But in terms of the popularity thing, I mean, but the games like Fallout are exponentially more popular than Assassin's Creed, even at that time. And like it just got glazed over. Whereas Unity was just targeted so fucking hard.
Yeah.
I'm
pretty
just
odd.
absolutely perplexed, befuddled to this day.
It is.
I mean,
it does sound. I mean, it could be what Carlos was saying with the whole popularity thing. Like there was no other ones at the time.
I just said that though. Like the popularity, like I get that it's a big game and that's a good point, but like the popularity thing, I don't really buy that.
Well, yeah, we're just saying that the crowd of yelling people are dumb and they didn't have anything else to complain about at the time.
Yeah.
Other than that.
Yeah. And
we're not trying to justify
saying,
them either. We're just saying that's probably the reason.
I think that's exactly what I'm saying too. The fact that it wasn't so much that that the game was so popular and it came out so bad. It's just a combination of things like like the high exposure, the few amount of like alternatives. It just like narrow it down to like this one single space in time. Like the reason why we all played Destiny. Not a great game. But we all played it because there weren't a lot of options.
And it was getting a lot of
I
popularity.
mean, I didn't play it because of that. I played it because I played the beta and I thought it would legitimately be good because I thought that was a sample of things to come, not the full game. Like I didn't play it because there were less options. I never do that.
Okay. We're not saying about you, but we're saying in general, most people in the
I understand.
The entire group.
I know. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, like that's not the like. I understand there are a lot of factors, but like Carlos, the point that he just said was that's the reason we all played Destiny. And what I'm saying is that's not the reason I played Destiny. I didn't play it because it was just out. And it was just, there weren't any other options. I played it because I legitimately thought it was going to be a good game. But again, Destiny, again, people bitch about it and stuff, but that game gets a huge fucking pass. And that came out in the same fall as Unity. It came out only like a month separated from Unity. Where's the fucking like uproar about that? Did Bungie have to fucking apologize? No, they didn't.
Again,
that's my thing.
But then again, that game wasn't buggy. Like, you say all you want, about Destiny. It was a good game that wasn't buggy. Like it was polished to a T. What little of the game
was polished, but the game was terrible. It's a trade-off. Do you take a buggy game that is good, or do you take a shit game that's polished? They're both kind of the same difference.
It wasn't shit. It was alright.
It was shit. I mean, that's your opinion. I thought it was shit.
So there's like the difference between also like bad game design and then if it's buggy or like buggy and it's like bad bugs versus good game design or good bugs, bad game design.
Yeah. I mean, Unity was pretty ambitious, and honestly, it's still the best looking Assassin's Creed game to date. You put those, you put Assassin's Creed, you put Unity right next to any of the contemporaries, and it still looks better. But it was just the Loft division that just couldn't, like both technology wise and the resources that they had just couldn't live up to.
Mm.
That's what I think, at least. I mean, I remember having fun with the game. I'm not gonna say I didn't have fun, but I also thought that, oh yeah, this is pretty unfinished, even by their standard, pretty unfinished. Really want to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey now that I think about it.
All right. Well,
And
I
you,
already said my thing about that. And
Mighty Number 9.
then, yeah. What? Anybody else?
It was a Mighty Number 2.
I hope there's never a number 2.
I
No,
mean,
no,
I
it's
still,
big.
I mean,
It's because doo doo.
Yes, yeah, that was the heights of my comedic timing right there. Making up 222.
Because of doo doo. Classic.
Call of Duty.
I mean, the
Call of
other one
Duty
I
went.
was gonna say was Star Wars, but it's not none of the movies or anything. Just EA's treatment of the Star Wars games and the IP. Like
I applaud you. Yeah,
it's
I totally agree with that.
the way that like obviously they come out with things like Battlefront, which I didn't play the second one even though I bought it, but I played the first one and I enjoyed it. It's very casual. That's fine, but it's fun. I had a lot of fun with it. But it's obviously as soon as Disney bought Star Wars, they infamously canceled Star Wars 1313, which was supposed to be the single player narrative Uncharted like game, which we later found out was going to be like the main protagonist was basically supposed to be a young Boba Fett, with the premise being that he's going to find something or someone in the level 1313 of this huge complex of this like seedy underbelly like conduit of crime, basically a giant Mos Eisley of like where the further down you go and the further the levels you go down, the worse it gets and the more dangerous it gets and scummy it gets. And it was just a really cool premise, and it was demoed and stuff, and it looked super cool. That was just unceremoniously canceled by Disney just because it wasn't part of their vision or whatever. Their high and mighty vision that really turned into something special. And then they obviously later canceled Amy Hennig's game, which was reportedly called Ragtag, which was, again, another single-player, narrative-focused game by Amy Hennig, who, in my opinion, if she isn't the best, she's one of the best storytellers and writers of dialogue and character in the game industry. And they canceled that one, too. And then they came out with Jedi Fallen Order, which a lot of people love. I don't really understand the love it gets. Like I thought it was a good game. It's pretty good. Like it's nothing we haven't already seen before. It's very I mean they're already making the sequel, of course, because it did really well. But it's also, and it's by Respawn, who is a great studio. But it's a very safe game. Like it's like pretty much all of the stuff that Disney has done since they acquired Star Wars. It's very safe. It doesn't really take risks. The protagonist he's not gonna really light your fire in terms of a personality or anything like that. But like, I liked the villain. She was really cool. And I like the Night Sister Marin. She was really cool, even though they brought her in at the end of the game as one of the main crew, and she didn't have a fucking point at all. But, like, the duels in that game are awesome. Like, I love the boss fights. I love, like, the duel with the, like, Dark Jedi and Dathomir, where he's got, like, the 2 lightsabers, and you got to fight him. It's super, super cool. The duels in that game kind of remind me of the ones in Ghost of Tsushima, where they're very focused, and you got to be tactical, and you got to think about it. You can't button mash your way through. Really cool. But, the game itself, for me, because I know, like, a lot of people love this game. Like, a lot of people were like, "This is my game of the year for last year." They were like, "This is incredible," and I was just like, not seeing it at all. It was just it's very cookie cutter. Like, it's very by the books. It's very, it's all the characters, like all the the characters that surround the protagonist. They're very generic, like the alien captain dude, like, who has a betting problem or a gambling problem that you never really get into. It's just, we've seen it all before. And then the Jedi Master that sort of mentors Cal, the main character, is I remember so many people being like, "Oh man, she's so great. She's such a great character." And I played the game and I'm just like, I'm not seeing it. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, that's just like the fact that, like, after these two, at least presumptuously ambitious games like 1313 and then Ragtag, after, EA just cancels those, they come out with Fallen Order, and it's just like, oh, I see. This is just like, it's like the trend. It's just Disney's running trend with Star Wars since they got it. Okay, we're gonna play it like super safe, and then the stuff that we don't play it as safe with, like something like maybe Rogue One or even Solo, where it's like, these are sort of one-off things, so we don't, it's fine if we take a few more risks with these, because we're never going to do anything else with them. Even though with Solo there was supposed to be a trilogy there, but because The Last Jedi was so divisive, they never, people didn't go to see it in theaters, and so it fucking bombed, and we didn't get a sequel to that, but we got, Rise of the Skywalker. So
Did you want to see a sequel for Solo?
Yeah, I love Solo. I think it's a great movie. I think it's really underrated. And yeah, I mean, because I was the guy who, years before, when they announced because it was announced as a trilogy, and it was supposed to be the Han Solo trilogy. And then it bombed, and so that it was just canceled. But I was for years like, I don't want a Han Solo trilogy. Like, he just died in Force Awakens. Why are we going back and seeing this character like again? Like, but then I saw the movie and I was like, man, I really enjoy this. But yeah, like, again, just getting away from the movies. That's just EA's treatment of the Star Wars IP is kind of pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, they've had the whole franchise for like what, a whole decade, and they've managed to get out 3 games.
Yeah, and then they came out with Squadrons recently, which is, it's sort of another, it's just very safe game. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just very safe, very by the books, and I'm just like, it's honestly that alone, even like, it's that safe mentality of never taking risks, and then the just huge dip in quality from everything Star Wars, or most things Star Wars, in the last 5 years have just, those are the 2 reasons why I've really just felt so much Star Wars fatigue. Whereas even though Marvel has come out with 10 times the amount of things, I just feel like the quality is there, and even if they're not the riskiest movies, but they still, I feel like, take way more risks than Star Wars has. So yeah, it's just unfortunate, but yeah.
I mean, it's EA. Like we would never expect. I mean, those are the guys who like send FIFA games like every other pretty much every year, and it's basically just like roster, just that roster update. In fact, on Switch, I know that the guys from IGN they were like, well, EA copy and pasted the game from last year, so we're just copy pasting our review,
right,
and lowering the score.
Yeah.
Fucking roast.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, that's the exact reason why they're the worst people to have the Star Wars IP. Like, I mean, because that's what they do. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I know we can have that conversation about whether EA really is like the worst company, because
I mean, they're not the worst company. That's a stupid fucking. I hate when people say that, because I'm like, hey, have you ever heard of like tobacco companies or companies that sell fucking weapons of mass destruction. How about those? Like, or even like a more tame company like Comcast, who owns everything, but they're fucking terrible, and everyone knows they're terrible, but they have to keep using them. Like, I mean, EA is by far not the worst company on earth, but I do feel like in just in the game space, like, just for the exact reasons you were saying, like they are, if not the worst, they are definitely one of the worst like people you would ever want to give something even remotely creative to. Like, give them the sports games, fine. Like, there's whatever, but like, any sort of IP that holds any emotion for you, especially a fucking a franchise like Star Wars, which is like puts nostalgia first and foremost and tries to tug on your heartstrings, not by like meaningful characters or narrative, but specifically because it ties into your childhood. Like that should, I don't think that a company like EA should like be in control of that. And they've shown their hand, obviously. Like they've shown what they can do with the Star Wars IP, and unfortunately the most impressive thing they've come out with is Jedi Fallen Order, which again is not that impressive to me.
Yeah, I agree that about that they've been playing it safe. When I've been paying attention to like the steps that EA's been making with Respawn and then like with Fallen Order, I feel like that Respawn. Now, I mean, this is me in my kind of tinfoil hat of thinking, and I don't have information, of course, so this is purely just like me making assumptions on steps that they've been doing. I have a strong feeling that Apex was the reason why they were able to even make the fucking game for Star Wars, because EA doesn't seem like the type to get convinced by Respawn to make a single player game at all. So it's like their negotiation was like, here, we'll make you Apex, which will make you hand over fist money. We won't put in we'll put in enough effort to make it a fun competitive game, sure, but really it's just an excuse for you guys to just sit around and just make more money from skins and season pass bullshit. And then we get to make a Star Wars game, and then they had to again still play it safe because EA is like, oh man, if we get too ambitious with the Star Wars game, EA is gonna cut the fucking cord on us. Okay, let's just make a decent game that just plays and does things that everybody already knows about. Like the things that quote unquote color. You're coloring the, you're painting by numbers. Like everybody's
let's not forget that EA is like well known for just like completely just shutting down studios. Like there's a whole graveyard of EA developers.
Visceral and such. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's not a theory, Sean. Like that was confirmed by the creative lead on Respawn.
Well, I'm glad that my assumptions were exactly correct.
Yeah, they were. It's correct because they, he was saying like, we spent like 5 years making Apex, but like the reason like that like we were able to, and it shows again in the final product of Fallen Order. But the reason why they were able to make Fallen Order is because of that game, because they put out Apex and it was such a smash hit, at least when it launched. But then like the thing is that like EA's like, okay, you have a year and a half to make this game now, and Fallen Order, which it shows, because that's, speaking of bugs, that game's buggy as fuck. Like that game is like clearly not completely finished.
Right. And so they had to. They basically had to push out the game, not do any risks, just because they had to push out the game, basically.
Yeah, and that's also the reason why that's like the only EA game in many years that has 0 microtransactions, because that was the deal. The deal was, okay, you can make Apex and we'll put all the microtransactions there. And then because of all the bad will that they had, because of this was like right after like Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out. And that whole fucking kerfuffle of like insane storm of microtransactions. And so they're like, okay, we got to get some goodwill back with the public, put out Fallen Order. It's a single player game. And, I think this was like right after they shuttered Visceral as well. So they shuttered this studio known for making, single player games. And they put out they let Respawn put out a single player game with 0 microtransactions. But I wouldn't be surprised if the sequel to Fallen Order has microtransactions.
Right.
So, yeah, like it's...
Yeah, we never know if it's going to come back.
That's their MO. That's what they do.
Interesting. I didn't even have to look up the news for that. I just make
Yeah.
you just see the chessboard. See the chessboard. See the pieces moving. You'll figure it out. Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah, they're
God.
pretty transparent. And their behavior is super transparent, but they are, they try to be as shifty as possible.
Yeah.
Their lies are very transparent. That's what I was
The
trying to
lies
say.
are transparent.
Mhm.
Okay, so speaking of disappointments, one disappointment I do have
Yes.
is not because of something that came out. It's something that didn't continue. It's the show Almost Human. Do you guys know what I'm
Oh
talking
yeah,
about?
Carl Urban. Yeah.
Carl, another,
Michael Ealy. Yeah.
another Carl
What?
Urban special of getting
What
fucking
is that?
canceled.
What is Almost Human?
It's
It came out at the
this-
beginning of 2014. It's a like futuristic thing where Carl Urban's a cop and then Michael Ealy is this sort of quote unquote defective android who has like emotions, and it's like a buddy cop show. It was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. Had like one run of the season, and yeah, we never got to see anything else after that because Fox is assholes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Typical
yep.
Fox bullshit.
They just love just shitting on whatever interesting franchise like they have. Like they did that to Firefly for some reason.
Yeah, Firefly
Yeah.
got even even
Hey,
worse,
what
like shittier stick. Or it
what
was
if we
just
put your story that you crafted in disorder?
yeah,
Not in
let's put the
chronological
pilot
order.
episode in the fucking as the last episode that airs ever before we cancel it. People will surely be able to follow the story then. It wasn't we didn't self-sabotage this at all. It was the show.
Clearly, people don't want this.
I understand that so here's the thinking that they have is that they don't like shows that have that continuity because it demands the viewer
Yeah.
to actually be engaged.
Yeah, they
wa-
like procedural shows over
yeah
serials every time for sure.
yeah exactly. So they think that they can just force a procedural like that. It's like no,
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. You don't just start watching in the middle of Return of the King, and then you just randomly go to different parts of the story.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I want that show back, but nope, not gonna
Almost
happen.
Human.
Not gonna happen.
Uh,
It's been
Is there
like
any place
how
where you can
many
watch it?
years? You actually can watch it for free on IMDb. I just checked.
On IMDb. Oh,
Yeah, oddly enough, IMDb has it for free.
interesting. I'll check it out.
Let me see if it actually because it said
Speaking-
watch for free.
Damn it, I haven't caught up on the boys. Have you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I caught up with that this weekend.
It's the season finale, right?
Yeah, all the episodes are out.
Yep.
Okay.
D, do you have any disappointing things?
I can think of one, but it's kind of multifaceted on this. And so this is technically a series that completed, but the reason why I'm disappointed is that they didn't go a certain route with it. And this is the Earthbound Mother series. I played all three games, and I remember having the most hype for the third installment, which was originally planned for the Nintendo 64. Or it was going to go on the add-on, the 64 DD, but they went through some, I guess, hurdles and decided to make it on a cartridge for the N64. It was going to be the series transition to 3D. And, I might be the only person on the planet, or maybe like one of like 20 people who didn't mind how cartoony the graphics were. A lot of people had a very contentious viewpoint of the graphics, saying this isn't my Earthbound, this doesn't look like what I want it to be. They wanted the cutesy peanut style that they're used to seeing, but me, I didn't mind seeing the Pilot Wing 64 looking characters. And this is something I harp on a lot. I just wanted to know what the series would be like in 3D, because when you play a game in 3D, you kind of get I always imagine that there's two different feelings. One is that you're just watching the action, and the other is that you're actually there. like with 2D, you're just watching it like a play, but with 3D, you feel like you're in the action. And I can say from reference that that's how I felt playing Zelda, and I wanted something like that with an Earthbound game. It around maybe 2001, they announced they had to cancel it because they were having some problems getting some things to work in 3D. Like that was their main issue. Transitioning to 3D was tougher in the N64 days. So the programmers had some problems with it. Let's see. There we go. So for the longest time, I wanted something that was trying to bring the Earthbound experience in 3D. Who knows about Y2K? Or Yik, as it looks like it's pronounced.
The what?
What is it called?
Yeah.
Oh, Y with two eyes.
Apollo's the one who answers, yeah.
So this is kind of taking a sidebar, but it is important to what I'm trying to get at here.
Okay.
Around after Mother 3 finished on the GBA and I played it, I loved it for what it was. I just wish I was playing the N64 version. I kept harping on that a lot. But after that was finished, they said, hey, we weren't going to do a Mother 4. So they kept going on all these diatribes saying, oh, Mother is complete. Earthbound's complete. No more games. If you're going to make a 4, make the 4 on your own. And this inspired a wave of indie gamers to make their own little send-offs of stuff that's inspired by Earthbound, or Mother likes, as one might say. And I don't mind that there were some 2D Mother likes or stuff that was influenced by it, because you got stuff like Undertale and I can't really think of anything else. There was like this other game, I don't even know if it even finished production. There were some Mother likes being put out there. Some are complete, some aren't. One that someone recommended me to give a look was Y2K. Spelled like Yik. And I'm going to keep on calling it Yik. They said, oh, it's inspired by Mother, but it's in 3D. I was skeptical, and I can understand why. Yes, it was inspired by Mother games, but that's like on the surface. The experience I wanted to get out of a 3D Earthbound game was something that was quirky, something that could laugh at itself, something that was kind of like a slice of Americana through Japanese lenses. I'm sure there are people who like Yik for what it was, but it wasn't going to fill the gap for me. I'm sorry. The problem I tend to see with a lot of Mother likes is that I think it's missing that little bit of nuance where it can laugh at itself. Like they either take themselves too seriously or they're quirky, but I can't complain about Undertale. I'm just going to say other games just kind of try to get that quirkiness with none of the little bit of drama or seriousness in between. Like it's really hard to explain the mystique of Earthbound, but it's like I don't think of playing an RPG. I think of like, hey, this is like, it kind of reminds me of Peanuts and it kind of reminds me of some other shit. I guess like Stand By Me and just moving on. Generally, my whole disappointment is even if there was a 3D Earthbound or Mother game, I kind of wanted the team to just finish what they had on the N64, because it did seem like they could have a cartoony looking JRPG. Even though it was made in Japan, it still kind of felt like some kind of wacky, zany cartoon and still could take itself seriously when it needed to. And knowing that all that work is scrapped away, all I want, like, I was even mad when they didn't get it through the Giga Leagues. Like, the fact that I'm willing to break the law that much and say, F you to one of the biggest gaming companies of all, just so I could play something that never got finished, that shows you how much I really was looking forward to that damn game. And now it's just a forgotten page in history, and people are saying, oh, they're doing the Fox and the Sour Grapes mindset, going like, oh well, it would have been terrible anyway. It didn't look great. It didn't look great because it wasn't 2D and it didn't have the nests. And it's like, look, all the Earthbound games, all the Mother games, they use clay models to show what their designs were going to be like. Clay models for the first two games. You're telling me 3D would look terrible on a game that used clay models for its concept artwork? Look at Ness and Lucas and freaking Smash Brothers. They look like fucking clay models come to life. And you're telling me that that would not fit the style of Earthbound? Oh, please. Don't give me that crap. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's like people are so afraid of the series transitioning to 3D, and it just seems like wasted potential to me. And I'm not just saying like 3D graphics that you look at from a bird's eye view. I mean like 3D camera in the deep kind of stuff.
Like in third person, you mean, rather than like isometric style.
Active camera, really. Because there's a lot of things that blind spots make 3D what it is. And this is an RPG that had visible enemy encounters. So just imagine just being in a tight spot, or not even in a tight spot. Just imagine trying to explore something like a castle or a cave or something, and the enemy just shows up out of nowhere, and then you just get that raw encounter. It's like, yeah, that like in the fixed camera, you can see it coming. But with an active camera, you might turn the camera a certain way that you might not see an encounter. Don't even see that little weakling say coming at you. You got like 14 hit points and you only have like 2 burgers. What are you gonna do, boy? But, yeah.
2 burgers.
2 burgers.
Oh man.
I can totally see that in the same style as the remake for Link's Awakening, but in full 3D.
You see, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yes, Link's Awakening totally makes a case for it. Actually, yeah. I think it makes a case for it if they're still sticking to the fixed camera. If they're just going to do a remake of one of the first 2 games,
yeah,
it's because I think if they were to do like a remaster of 1 and 2, they should use that graphic style. I don't mind if it's fixed camera for the first 2 games because that's how people are familiar with them. If they're going to do 3D, I want to say do a new game, but I really wanted to see what the original plan was for the N64 game. So I can't say that in full confidence. So there it is. But yeah.
I love to play the Earthbound games. They're so famous among the,
the first game is the crudest experience of it all. Like, I'd say if you're going to play the first game and you haven't, just play through it just to get that out your system because it's so unfair and broken. Like,
is that on the NES?
Yeah, the NES one, because it has random encounters and the enemies are so fucking broken. Your main character has asthma problems, so if you have, yeah, I'm not making that shit up. If you run into an enemy like, because the game has a lot of zany enemies like living trucks and signs and shit, so if you run into like a truck and then the truck spews exhaust fumes, if it's against anyone else, it's not a big deal. But if it's against your main character, asthma attack can't fucking use any moves or PSI. You gotta buy some inhalers. It's like, what the fuck is this?
That's awesome.
That's
like,
pretty cool.
I always wanted to buy inhalers in
video game where the main character Ness can get homesick, so you have to call home so he can focus in battle. Like, that gets annoying, but it doesn't happen it's not as annoying as fucking asthma. All right, your other party members can cover for you if you grind up enough, and you can always find a phone and go like, "Hey, mom, I'm homesick. Here's $1 for the phone call." That's the end of that. Like, because Ness's homesickness comes in at fucking random, but it's like it's not frequent. Fucking Ninten, if he inhales like dust or like exhaust fumes or whatever, fucking hell, you're shit out of luck in that battle. And Lord help you if like your party members are dead or all you have is just Ninten, because that's when you're jolly well fucked. Because yeah.
I like that. I always like that where like it's a whimsical kind of view of the world through the lens of a kid, and it's has that kind of fantasy element that like it gives a good chuckle, when you see it. But then like it still can be a fun mechanic of the game where you're playing it and it's all these like would be normal things is actually part of the fun.
They're very human elements.
Yeah.
And that's one part of the game design that I do respect.
Yeah, we're getting a fairy tale without the fairies.
Oh, there you go.
It's funny.
Huh.
Yeah, I haven't personally played any of them. It's like hard to come by. And then like it's one of those things where it's like I feel like there's a mystique too if you're like somebody that plays and is a fan of the series, you know, of those type of
Yeah.
games too. So there's like even more niche than I don't know what you can compare it to right now. What's a niche thing right now? But
Like, to its credit, there are many games that I would replay over and over again. And even though there's a lot of stuff about Earthbound that I don't like, but it is one of the installments I replay over and over again. Just like there's a charm to it that just pulls me back in.
The original for NES.
No, not the original. I'm talking about Super Nintendo. Earthbound Beginnings, that has charm, but it has NES game charm rather than Mother game charm, where it's like it feels like something you play in the early 80s and would have been a thing. It's just after that though, after you finish it, it's like you don't need to play it again.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that entire generation, you know, you go back to playing those games and they feel very rudimentary.
I just think that there are some mechanics that don't really hold up that well. Like I was glad when Pokemon started having visible encounters, for example. Like I don't know, there's something about random encounters that I just don't like. It's like
I don't think
we're
a
in
lot
the
of people
3D
can say
age,
they
and
really enjoyed that. I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever met anybody that said, I love random encounters. It's more like
Yeah.
you're always like, you had these hesitant moments of like, should I run through there? Because I know that I'm just going to, all of a sudden, I just need to get to where I need to go. And then suddenly I'm going to get into another fight. And it's kind of like, do you want me to stop playing? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's
Because
not even
you
a
make
survival
these
issue.
games where exploration is key, and now we have 3D games, so you kind of want to explore more areas. Random
Right.
encounters aren't challenging, and I'll guarantee you, if a player wants to get into battle to grind, they will do it willingly.
Right. So I think that even links to some of what we're talking about, like looter shooters too, where like you put too much out of the player's hands and make it too much RNG based, then it's just not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we all dreaded going into the caves, you know, in Pokemon, you know, having to like you know, a cat having to battle a fucking million Subats.
Oh yeah.
There's Zubat. There's Zubat. That's also Zubat.
Oh shit! I'm running out of attacks here.
Bro.
In his world, he's probably just walking over like a whole entire carpet made of like dead Subats. It's like, oh god, I killed a lot, didn't I? They're all dead too. They're not just unconscious.
Go on and shove these rocks. Shove once, shove twice. Oh, battle. Okay, let
Yeah.
me shove battle. Well, let me shove it again. Battle. Now, if you had some repels and a high level Pokemon on your league, you wouldn't have to worry about that. Like, okay, but that's like most of my money, and I kind of want potions and shit. So
Yeah, random encounters are brutal. Like they're still in some games. Like I remember Nino Kuni, which is like this like super renowned game. And like I think it was early PS4 that I tried to play it on, and it was like I really like the story, and the animation is by Studio Ghibli, and it's like the story is really sad, but it's really good. But like as soon as you get to the combat, it's totally like old school Pokemon, where it's just like random encounter after random encounter, and I just couldn't do it. I'm just like I've played too many games where they've it's evolved past that to like go back to that mechanic, you know. Where I just like as much as I really wanted to play the game and I was enjoying the story and the characters, I couldn't do it.
like there was this one game I played on Super Nintendo. It's kind of obscure. It's called Super Ninja Boy. It's based on this long running series by this company called Culture Brain. I was playing through that, like, just to see what it was like start to finish. And later on in the game, it doesn't even play like a turn-based RPG. The battles play like a little beat 'em up game, like Streets of Rage or whatnot. So imagine that, walking through the field, getting into battle. Sometimes you would get into 2 battles in a row because you finish that battle, you're standing still, and you get into another battle. That's how fucking punishing the game is.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So okay, so so obviously, like, a lot of people like the ones where you get to see the enemies that are in the, like, Pokemon does that now, where there's a mesh of both, where you see the enemy and they could chase you down, or you could chase it, and then there is some bushes that you can go through, and it would be a random battle.
Right.
See, the encounters in tall grass still make sense.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll run into rare Pokemon, but overall, you're not going to get into a random battle just for walking the field or something. So I can understand they split the difference, and splitting the difference is fine. It's just that a lot of game design for JRPGs seem to think that random encounters are one of those grandfather clause protected things, and they really need to throw that out the window in our transition.
Yeah, they really keep
You
it
have to
that.
have random encounters. It's the law.
It's the law. The law of the land is for honor.
Yeah, it's like over encumbrance in games, right? Where it's just like you have too much stuff on your pack, so you can't walk anymore, and it's just like, but how does this make the game better?
Right?
Like, how does this, like, why is this still in games? Like, it adds nothing, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah, it's like, what are you trying to restrict me from doing? Like, why is this even here? Like, even if they try to say,
it's a video game,
survival!
Why isn't my backpack just, like, infinite? Like, especially in something like Fallout, where you are collecting junk. That's the whole point. You're collecting junk so you can, like, make guns and shit out of this. And it's just like, so you want me to collect as much junk as possible, but then you punish me for collecting too much junk. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Let me be a hoarder, goddammit.
It's basically, like, I feel like in that one particular one is more like fluff. You know, they want you to have to travel back and forth over and over and over again.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's unnecessary.
The only franchise that's actually done over encumbrance well, it's actually the Souls series, where they that just limits what kind of armor you can have, so that you can just be you cannot just be rolling around and tanking all the hits.
That's merited.
Yeah,
because I never.
But you can still wear the armor, right? Like, you can still wear it, but it's just like
your
inventory
infinite.
Fucks you up. Like, you can't do anything, you can't move fast enough.
Right.
See, that's fine to me. That's totally fine, because it doesn't just stop you in your tracks. It's like, okay, just think about what you're doing. Like, it doesn't just like, well, you have to go back now and, like, put all this shit into. You have to go back into the menus, put all this stuff into your box. Like, that doesn't really stop the game. It's just like, okay, just think about this, and maybe if you want to do it later, you can do it later. Like, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, that's like there's a give and take choice there that isn't necessarily something that's just stopping you from playing the game.
Yeah. Exactly. It actually works towards the mechanics of the game. Like, it makes you think more about how you're gonna play it. If you want it, just move, very slowly and just tank a bunch of hits, it's a valid strategy in the Souls games,
right.
But it will limit you. It at least prevents you from.
It sounds like
just
being
like very mobile. Just
in that particular situation, it sounds like it doesn't limit it choice. You still have choices.
Exactly.
Whereas in, like, say, Fallout, it's there to just slow you down instead of moving forward further into the game.
And it makes no sense, like you said. It's a game where you're supposed to be collecting a whole bunch of stuff, and yet they stop you if you're collecting too much stuff.
It would have made sense if they added something where you can expand your storage more infinitely. Like, over time, you would have more stuff to do, or you had, like, a pet that you. Well, I mean, that's how I did.
I mean, they do. They have companions and pets where you, like, put the stuff in there. But even that gets over encumbered.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, the whole point is to explore, and you're getting lost and you're having all these fun encounters and stuff, but then your pets get over encumbered, and then your companions get over encumbered, and you have no choice but to stop your exploration completely and go back to your base and dump all this shit out, or just drop all this useful stuff that you need. Like it's just like it just completely stops you in your tracks.
Yeah, I just remember that. I remember I used to abuse the pet systems there to expand the storage. Or even like just like, okay, I know I'm just gonna use this during this situation just so I don't have to hold on to it.
Right.
It's like a disposable, I don't know, like rocket or some shit. It was like, this is heavy as hell. Well, I'm gonna use this against this bug. The roaches will die now because it's too heavy.
Well, that's a whole topic right there, huh? Like, game mechanics that we're happy are finally gone.
Or that need to be gone.
That need to be gone.
Yeah.
Mechanics in need of reform.
Yeah.
In need of reform. That's a good way of putting it.
It's the one thing that's actually keeping me from playing Final Fantasy VII. Like, I could buy it, but I hate random encounters.
What, you're talking about the old game? You want to actually go back?
Yeah, no, the old game. I definitely enjoyed the demo for the new one, for the remake. Yeah.
So you wanted. I don't think you're gonna actually hit a nostalgia, like, you know what I mean?
Well,
if you're
that's
trying to figure out, like, trying to be like understand what everybody else is already feeling for the new one. I don't know if you
or just understand a lot of things that are actually happening in the new one.
Sure.
Because like there are parts where, like, I mean, I haven't played the game. I haven't played either game, but like I've seen bits and pieces, and like there's a cat with a cape or some bullshit like in part of it, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like
yeah.
And you're just supposed to like, okay, if you played the original game, like
then
you're good, but if you're just jumping in and you're having a lot of fun with the game and you get to this part, you're just like, but what? And it's just like, well, just wait until the next part comes out, then you'll see. And it's just like, are you kidding?
Yeah. I mean, mostly I just want to be able to see, like, the difference between both games. I'm sure that there's, that the original game, has a charm, and that it was, fun, that it's so well regarded because it was fun at the time. So
I mean, I feel like it's so different that
experience it.
I don't even think you need to go back to the other one unless for one reason, which is what Apollo was saying, understanding the references. I mean, that makes sense, but the game's so different. Like, when playing it, it's just, I think it's just a new experience. But then that's the thing too. I feel like to some degree it's like the most interesting take on having to do a remake on anything. You know how like there's the stuff where like people have nostalgia for something and they don't want that to be tainted. They don't like anything different. They're very much the purist, right? But then at the same time, there's the other one where it's like I wanted something different. I want them to at least surprise me and elevate it to something else, right? And do some sort of risk involved. And I feel like Final Fantasy, they're doing some risks that was like, man, that's a bold move what you're doing here. Like, you're going to and that's the thing, is like either you're going to upset a lot of people, but at the same time, from the way that they're doing it, feels like, maybe actually they are doing a good idea here, where now the fan base has a choice of what to pick is their version of the game. Because, I mean, we could, I don't know. Yeah, we could get on to it some other time.
I mean, the way I see it, it's like, it kind of encourages double dipping if you play the original, because they know that they still can profit off of the sales of the original, so why cut that line?
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard because I played the game and I have played the original Final Fantasy, so anything I were to say right now is probably going to be like, one, it's spoiler, and two, it's at the same time, who cares about spoiler at this point? Everybody should know.
For a 20-year-old game, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's like, it's just not going to make sense for what I'm going to say. So I don't know if I want to go into it. Maybe for another day, or we just off air. Okay. I mean, we have. Let's see. Where are we with time?
Deviated completely from the original topic. Yes.
I mean, kinda.
We all already. I'm pretty sure we all already
We already
spoke
all
our
said
I'm pretty
our
sure we
thing.
never
but-
stick to it's strictly to the topic. Yeah, I'm just.
It's
I would
okay if we don't have to.
It just came to mind that I'm like, wait, how did we end up talking about this? It's like, oh, that's right.
I mean, that's the best thing about conversations is when you find out that you went into a
I
different
mean, it
direction.
happens every episode. I think
Yeah.
it's fine. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
The important thing is the dart hit the board.
No, we need structure.
Hit the
We
board.
need to adhere
It may
to the
not be the
schedule,
middle.
okay?
It may not be the bullseye. But I mean, we did talk about all
No,
our
I
stuff,
mean,
right? And then we
I
just
wouldn't say that that's unimportant, but like it is still a conversational podcast. As
Yeah.
long as we still hit what we wanted to hit.
yeah, we still
Yeah.
talked about exactly what we wanted to talk about, and then we just ended up having conversations of other stuff. So that had
More
some
interesting
relation here and there.
More interesting stuff than No Man's Sky. But then again, that's not a high bar.
I mean, you know, that was I would say the PR element to it definitely made it a disappointment because they really over PR'd that shit.
Well, that's exactly. I mean, if
Like,
it
it
had just been a game that
Yeah.
appeared on the fucking store one day, people wouldn't have had any expectations, and it would have been like, oh,
Exactly.
okay, this is good or this is not good, and then move on. Like that's
Yeah.
it.
It's like
Yeah.
But it was like
gassing us
2
up
years of
way too
all this
much.
insane hype, you know?
Yeah.
I think
Highly
that
agreed.
it would have been the kind of game that would have definitely benefited from the whole early access system. You know, and also
Yeah,
no price at a full $60.
An actual early access, not like Fortnite, where it's like we're still in early access. It's been
Oh,
out
Yeah,
for
they're
3
like
years, and
pretending.
it's like in any problems they have, they just blame it. Well, it's still in early access technically, so you know whatever. It's fine if the game doesn't work today. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Oh my
I know, right?
God. Yeah, it's such
Uh,
an excuse these days. You know how like you're playing the beta of Call of Duty, you know,
Yeah,
Warzone,
that comes out
whatever.
like 2 weeks before the fucking game. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is the beta. Like, yeah, the
Mhm.
game's not going to be
not
exactly
even-
like this when it launches in 2 weeks. Like,
fucking bullshit.
Maybe that should be our fucking topic for next week because I want to complain about that. About
sure.
fucking people talking about beta
Betas.
that, beta this. I was like, fuck you, shut up. It's not a
You're
beta.
such a-
Stop
I know.
using that word.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually it'll be alpha, and then like, what's gonna be next?
I mean, they already do that. They already
Yeah, they even
totally come out
call
with alphas, and it's
alphas-
just like, but
yeah.
alphas aren't playable. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's
Like,
what the fuck an alpha is.
Yeah.
It's like they're just using these words, and then
Yeah.
like soon they're gonna call it. This is the Omega version.
God, your game is such a beta cock. Not like my alpha chat over here.
No, I mean, I just remember PUBG being in like early access for 2 years, and then people like, okay, it's launching tomorrow. It's officially launching, and then it launched
Exact
to
same
like,
game.
yeah, it launched to version 1.0, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, why is this the same? And I'm like, what the hell did you expect? Like, you expect some magic trick overnight? It's gonna be a totally different game that works well, like,
It's so
and is
funny.
optimized? Like, come on.
It is optimized.
Yeah,
I like that's you know the expectation. It's got to be optimized, and it falls.
yeah, exactly. To this day, it is still not. And they don't care because you know people still play and they made
True.
millions,
Yeah,
and they didn't have to optimize it. So
Hey,
it's
more
just
power
actually-
to them, I
More
guess.
power, yeah, and, you know, good for you guys. You know,
I
doing
mean, you're
that whole-
scumbags, but you know, good job. Like,
What's it?
it's.
What's
I mean,
it?
to be fair, people fell for it, so
Yeah.
it's not entirely on you.
What is it? Is it you know, they're what are they called now? Games that are games of services. There you go. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
Them being
a
the
good excuse to have it to release incomplete games, and then just have roadmaps where like the game will be complete in 3 years. We promise. If it makes it that far, you know, people actually want to play an incomplete game at launch.
This is so funny. All right. All right. So, yeah. Thanks for anybody that's still listening, and we'll see you all next time.
Keep for
Bye-bye.
listening. Goodbye.